And with that, I'm going to welcome you to the stage and pin the spotlight on you for everybody to see. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest today and for speaking.
Thank you for having me. I'm Sarah, and I have a virtual accounting firm based in Arizona. Most of my clients are all across the country. I don't have many in Arizona. I also teach QuickBooks Online to other bookkeepers and accountants. I have a Facebook group that's free where you can generally get pretty good answers for even complicated questions that are asked there. So I'm going to drop this link in here if anybody wants to check that out. It's grown rather fast to about 13,000 people now. So there's a ton of people in there, and you'll get some good answers and some crazy answers maybe sometimes. But if you weed through them, you will definitely get what you're looking for. I mainly wanted to go over with you guys today the things that I see most commonly done wrong during setup that end up causing heartache and headache and expense, time lost, all of the above in the future. So I think it's important to tell people how to get it straight the first time, but generally what I end up doing is cleaning it up on the other side. But that's how I've built my expertise in QuickBooks, is cleaning up massive disasters. So I don't know if you guys all got this handout or if I can post it in the group here, but it's the checklist. Okay, there we go. It's the checklist I'm gonna be going over. So some of these might be really obvious that you would want to do before you get to the stage for setting up your books, but I just wanted to include everything so that you have a solid setup. You want to get registered with the state corporation through the corporate commission to get your LLC at least. And if you're going to get a different entity type for some complex business structure, then you're going to need to get an attorney for that, and probably a CPA, and have them work together to get you the best tax advice and accounting advice that agree with each other. Because sometimes what a lawyer says will not agree with what your accountant will do or what you're capable of doing on your own. So it's good that everybody's communicating amongst those people if you have a more complex setup. This is just general for an LLC, a basic sole proprietor. And after you do that, you would want to get your Irs Federal Id number, and that's just, you can Google that and you will end up on the IRS website to sign up for that. You want to then get business bank accounts in that name, and those are the bank accounts that you want to hook up to your books. A lot of people end up starting without having the bank account, and to get the bank account you have to have the EIN, and to get the EIN you have to have the LLC. So it's kind of a chain of events that should go in that order for best process. Then you'll start with bank accounts in the business name, and that's ideal. A lot of people end up with personal things mixed in there, and that is the red flag number one. So let's see. If you're using things like PayPal and Stripe, you want to shift to using the invoicing structure in QuickBooks. And if you need to hook Stripe up, you can integrate it so that it brings in all your information. You can find YouTube videos on how to do that on my YouTube channel. So sometimes it's a bad idea to integrate like Square or Stripe with your QuickBooks, because you're going to find out that with a lot of small dollar transactions that it'll take you a long time to match them up, and it will end up bringing in way too much information. So when you sell a lot of small things, sometimes it's best not to integrate. It's best to just further like research when it is good, or you can ask in the group and you will get great answers on this topic. If you buy anything over $2,500, that's considered an asset, and you need to add it to your balance sheet as such. And if you don't do your taxes, you'll need to just tell your tax person that you bought that, and they will take care of it accordingly. Depreciation is the main thing that comes at that time. But if you're doing everything yourself, You can set up depreciation and your asset all by yourself in QuickBooks if you're so inclined to do so. If at the time you need to elect to S Corp, let's see this question. Asset, okay, so I'm just reading your notes. Okay, so assets, loans, if you have cars or anything that you have a loan for that's in the business name, you need to be splitting out the interest from the principal on your loan and putting interest to interest expense and principal to a liability on the balance sheet, not to an expense account on your profit and loss. So you need to have the loan and the liability. The loan is a liability. So you need to have that set up within your books so that it's going to the proper places. I see everyone always gets that wrong. And when you do elect to be an S Corp, that's when it's really important to start paying more attention to payroll. And if you are an S Corp, you are expected to be on payroll. So if you have one and you don't have payroll, you're going to need to add that on. And I usually recommend Gusto payroll because it's easier and it integrates with anything. If you're not using QuickBooks, that's fine too. There are other things that could be more suitable for a really easy company that doesn't have much going on. For payroll, I recommend Gusto, not QuickBooks. The QuickBooks one is kind of hard to deal with, and it's hard for even the accountant version to fix anything that goes wrong if perchance it does, which it's very easy to go wrong in there, I found. So let's see. Also, if you want to track your mileage for your business, because that's going to be an important thing, the QuickBooks app can do it. You can set that up on your phone or your tablet. Just download the app, and then it can integrate with your books. Let's see. You can do a lot of things on a tablet too. If you're out in the field or you go to customer sites, you can make invoices on a tablet and you can get signatures on estimates, which you can't even do with the one on your computer. So that's a good thing. So before you go set it up, the thing that determines in QuickBooks how it's going to set it up for you to make it the most user-friendly for you is going to be your NACHS code that you put in, which is your, I don't even remember what that stands for, National Something Identification Code, which tells QuickBooks what type of business it is and what type of business you're doing. And that's how it's going to create the chart of accounts that's most useful for you based on your business. Let me see if there's anything else. That is all I have to share on all of that. Do you guys have questions about QuickBooks in general?
Yes, you said in your notes not to do the self-employment version. You said do Simple Start QuickBooks Online,
Yes.
but not the self-employed.
The self-employed version doesn't have an actual GL, which when it comes to accounting is very important for moving things around. Basically, the self-employed version is like swipe left for if it's a business expense, or right if it's a personal expense, and you can enter some things, but basically it just makes lists. And if you want to scale your business in the future, and you started with self-employed, you can never convert to those other ones properly because the conversion just kind of extends the mess that self-employed creates to begin with. So basically, if you start with that one, it's in your best interest to maybe like at the beginning of the next year, quit self-employed and start with either Essentials or Simple Start, because it's going to give you a lot more scalability and features to automate that will eliminate your tasks altogether. Because essentially what we're doing is repetitive tasks. And if you have like Essentials or Simple Start, you can make rules and pretty much automate the basic daily bank categorization, which leaves you with very little to do in the end.
So another thing is Essentials and Simple Start. As a solopreneur, service-driven business, Essentials or Simple Start, which is better?
I would go with Simple Start.
Okay.
Yes, you don't really need anything until you need it, but with every one of those other versions, they convert seamlessly.
Ah,
It's not Simple Start, or just not self-employed. That one's like the, I don't know what to call it, but it's not good for much. I know that much. So, oh yes, so see, self-employed. I just have a lot of horror stories trying to fix people's books in there. I can't do anything really for a person that comes to me with a nightmare in self-employed. If somebody did, I would be like, let's just start over in the other one, and I can give you something beautiful, recreated perfectly in the other version from scratch quickly. So that's why I kind of put that everywhere, so people just know to avoid that from the beginning.
okay. Thank you.
The main other trouble things that I see on a daily basis is when people are not matching things. So if you create an invoice in your QuickBooks and then you hook up your banks to your QuickBooks, then you need to hook the payment for that invoice to that invoice, because then it'll show it as closed, the accounts receivable is closed, and you're in the money coming in from the bank matching to it. A lot of people come to me after they've been using QuickBooks for a few months and they're like, why are my things duplicated? And that's generally because they're not matching the matching principle of matching the actual bank activity with the things that are being created in QuickBooks. So if you give someone a refund and that money goes out of your bank and then it shows up in QuickBooks in your bank feed that's automatically hooked to your bank, you need to point that refund to the refund you created in a form in QuickBooks so that they match together. And that's how you'll end up with proper financial statements. And some of these integrations are what bring in all of that detail to help you with those tasks. And I'm trying to think, PayPal, people always set that up wrong. They just don't set it up. When you set up PayPal with QuickBooks, you need to hook it up like it is a bank, and it brings in all the transfers that happen between your bank and PayPal, and they all go back and forth and match together. A lot of people go wrong on that. Any other questions about going from either LLC to S Corp or tracking mileage versus actual? And the home office deduction is another great topic that people always want to ask me about.
I do have a question, if it's okay. I have an e-commerce project that's separate from my other stuff. So I've already got notes on the structure, I know that part piece, but I'm just trying to figure out like my tax liabilities. I use Shopify, so they do track some of that and I have that set up correctly, but it's just kind of like, I do know states have like a threshold you have to pass before it, actually you have liability in states other than where you live or like are operating out of. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, would QuickBooks be helpful to help connect that, or is there something I connect in Shopify that would like be applicable because it seems to do most of it? I just was kind of like curious about that.
Yeah,
if that's outside your scope, that's fine, but I was just wondering.
That's a great question. E-commerce is a ball of yarn when it comes to QuickBooks.
Mhm.
What I've seen a lot of people with e-commerce QuickBooks do is there's lots of add-ons that you hook onto your QuickBooks. There is a QuickBooks Commerce add-on, and what it does is it will sync Shopify, Stripe, PayPal. It'll do WooCommerce, because what QuickBooks does with Woo is it likes to create the same invoice numbers, which the system says no. So these commerce add-ons that you hook onto your QuickBooks, they bring in all the information from all these different places and put it all in QuickBooks, but it's still kind of very confusing when it comes to that tax topic of
Right.
all the different states that you're selling to. And what people put in place at that level is either TaxJar or Avalara. And what
Okay.
that will do is it hooks to your QuickBooks or to your one of your systems or all of them, and it tells you when you are when you do meet that threshold in that state and when you do need to start paying that, and it won't show you needing to pay it until you have to pay it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was very valuable. I appreciate
You're
it. I'll definitely, I joined your group already, I think so.
Cool. You can get good answers in there all the time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just have a question, and this is, please forgive me, I'm not using QuickBooks right now. So I'm, when it comes to QuickBooks, I'm a virgin.
Oh, it's all good. Shoot.
So if I've got my intuitive business here, and then I've got my other piece of stream of income from another company, do I have to have, can they come through the same QuickBooks thing, or do they get handled separately? Or maybe I just don't understand enough.
Do you have two separate EINs for your two
I'm
businesses?
Canadian.
Okay, so then I guess that would mean, have you paid taxes on them? You can run them through
I'm
one
a registered
QuickBooks Online.
business. I'm a registered business.
Yes, so then you could run them together. The only time that's a bad idea is if there's some kind of risk in one business, but not in the other. Like if I'm doing accounting over here, there's no risk. But if I have rental properties, that's kind of risky. Somebody might sue me. So I don't want to mix them together, and I should have separate EINs for them. But if they're slightly related, like you're selling products that over here, but you're providing services here, but they're both part of the business, you know, and they're kind of related, you could definitely put them together.
Okay.
And you'll want to create different accounts, like this type of income and this type of income, so that you can separate them, and you'll know how much you're making in each kind of segment of your business.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question, if it's okay.
Yes.
If you have multiple properties, let's say like I've got my like a service-based thing and also my e-commerce thing, do I have separate like QuickBook accounts for them based on like an LLC, different LLCs, or is like, do I have it all under one account, but they're different properties within the account?
Do you have more than one EIN?
I need to do that for this.
Okay, so
coming
you
year.
don't have one at all?
Yeah, I just recently launched the e-commerce thing.
Okay, then I would put them together until you can't manage them together or you find a reason to separate them.
Okay.
Keep them in one EIN. The only reason to have two is if you already have two EINs, then like you pretty much need to keep them separate. Otherwise things just get weird and very complicated.
Thank you.
So yes, I can't think of anything else that would cause any problems with that.
Thank you.
So about the home office deduction, I'm going to go there and step right into it because many of us operate our businesses from home. How much do we deduct? What can we deduct? What should we be tracking to make sure that that is in our QuickBooks? You know, what things should we make sure that we're tracking so that we're not missing like major deductions that we should have for our businesses?
I have a spreadsheet that calculates this for people that are self-employed. Generally, this is to see if it's applicable to any one individual business owner. You would need to contact someone and talk about your specific variables to see if you can take this, because if you're a W-2 employee, you cannot take it. And if you are an S Corp, it's not how it works anymore. You do something else. This is generally for the single proprietor or partners that are in a partnership that is an LLC type of designated, or if you don't have an LLC before that phase or stage, before you even get there, you can take this tax deduction. And essentially what you would do is write down the square footage of your house and the square footage of your dedicated office. And then there's a ratio by dividing the square footage of your office divided by your house, then you'll get a percentage. And then you apply that percentage to every bill that is applicable to your home. Within reason, don't be crazy, but you can even apply this for home improvement. Like I put a misting system on my patio because it's 120 degrees here in the summer. And I'm definitely going to deduct a ratio of that on my home office because I work out there a lot. And also things like painting your office or buying your desk or internet is at 100%. Your cell phone should be deducted at 100%. Meals are 100% in 2021 and 2022 if they're dine in. Back to the home office, applying the square footage to the ratio of your home. Then if you rent, you can deduct that part of your rent and that part of your electric, that part of your water, sewer, trash, HOA, cleaning service, pool guy, all of that. But you need to have evidence so that you can show that it's all valid. You don't want to clean your bedroom because that's not a dedicated office. Your kitchen table doesn't count. So generally like your office, your room, you really want to, and if you have storage in your garage of crap for your work, definitely count that square footage. If you have, like I have a little waiting room for people that come to meet me at my home, and the entryway, I call that home office. And people, if you look at case study, have actually won against the IRS on a lot of large square footage comparisons. So if you just put some thought into it and supply reasons why it is.
How does this work for an S Corp?
For an S Corp, you definitely need to talk to your accountant because there's 100 different ways you could do it.
Okay.
You can rent your part of your house to your S Corp. Your S Corp can pay you for like a comparable office type of situation. There's lots of different ways it could go with an S Corp, and there's definitely what suits you best would be based on your variables, like how much you pay for your house and how much are all your expenses. Because if you're frugal, there's different ways and different ones that you want to choose because you save your money on purpose. So there's
Gotcha.
that. And if you want the spreadsheet, I can share the link.
That would be amazing.
Find it. But seeing how it applies to you and if it is applicable definitely is a requirement.
Hey, Sarah, is your background your real home or is that a backdrop?
No, this is it. This is my castle.
Woo-wee.
It's beautiful. I love your fish tank, by the way.
Thanks.
I have a turtle and a fish tank. And then I have the fish with the turtle that the turtle has failed to catch. So it went from this to that.
Yes, quite a bit of work involved in that fish tank, but
Yeah.
let's see, what else do I have that could be helpful to share?
This is amazing.
I have a list of categories and like where you should put things for the people that are like beginners with categorizing their expenses. Let me just pull some of these things up and share them. Did anybody have any other QuickBooks questions related to generally anything QuickBooks Online? Is my specialty.
That's pretty amazing.
When hiring somebody to do my accounting, is it important that is there like QuickBooks school or certification, or is there?
There's certifications that are offered by QuickBooks that anybody can get, and whether they actually can do anything with QuickBooks is pretty much an entirely different story, because you can pretty easily get a certification to push buttons in the software, but knowing the accounting in the background is really going to be what determines if you're going to get a good set of books or a hot mess. But generally, like if you find somebody local and there's the ProAdvisor directory and you talk to them and ask them the hard questions, you'll know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Let's see. Here's the link for the home office deduction in my Google Docs, so make a copy and save. And it has an example at the bottom. It has directions. It has the IRS link, so you can read directly from the horse's mouth what is and is not okay. And if you're planning on, if you own your home, it's kind of a different story, and you want to see with your accountant or your tax preparer if it's a good idea for you to take the deduction on the portion of your mortgage, because sometimes it's not a good idea and you have to reclaim whatever you took as a deduction there if you end up selling the home.
This is awesome.
Also, I did want to talk about 1099 contractors, because that's how a lot of people, that's how I do a lot of things these days. And that's how a lot of my clients I see are doing things these days, hiring out contractors for different pieces of their business. And I want to talk about 1099s because generally people like us never file them correctly. We don't know who to give them to or when. But anybody that we pay over $600 and we pay them during the calendar year, and we pay like an individual person, like maybe technically, since I'm still an LLC and I'm not an S Corp election, then technically if you use my services, you would want to give me a 1099. I don't get any, nobody does it. So if you want them done right, because you don't have somebody doing them for you, you can very easily in QuickBooks send an email to anybody on that list that categorizes in that group, and it will ask them to fill out their information for you, and QuickBooks saves it in there. So at the end of the year, you can file those and it sends them copies and it files with the IRS for you. Done. No red flag, because if you don't do 1099s for your contractors, that is a red flag. They want your subcontractor expense on your tax return to match to the penny to what you issued in 1099s. So you're not always going to get flack for that, but if you're growing and scaling and crossing your T's and dotting your I's, you want to make sure you get that done.
What's the definition of a 1099?
So a 1099 is anybody that's not incorporated that provides services to you. So accountants, lawyers, people that are not employees that do tasks for you. If you pay them through PayPal or a business PayPal or a business Venmo, you don't have to worry about it. But if you pay them from your business checking account, you need to worry about those payments made within that account directly to these people that are service providers that are not incorporated within their own business.
Thank you.
Carol, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I use QuickBooks Online, and I wanted to know how to easily reconcile my credit card statements. I make payments through my checking account to pay my credit card, but then when I download the feed from the credit card, how do I go about reconciling that with you? I
Does
think
that
that's
amount,
on the end. Yeah.
does that amount throw it off?
I beg your pardon?
The fee, is that what throws it off for you?
It feels like it. Yeah, it seems like I always seem to have something off
If
by,
it is the fee, you can put the fee in on the main screen. So like when you go to reconcile account, little boxes will pop up underneath it. And there will be a place for you to put a bank fee. But if you are reconciling credit cards possibly that have connected cards under one account, those are a QuickBooks problem, have always been. Corporate type of credit cards, they never end up looking right and they never balance right on the screen. But if you're just dealing with one credit card and the fee is throwing it off, there's a special box for it. But if it's something else throwing it off, then you need to go through the transactions in your credit card statement, line by line, and see what's possibly missing. But if it's a small dollar amount, I would just let it go to reconciliation discrepancies and be like, there's the 2 cents over there, or the $5.
it's usually one line item. It's so weird. It's like something seems to look like a duplicate.
If it's a duplicate, you can delete the extra. If it is missing one, you can add one expense manually by going to the new button and entering an expense. And you could just put anything in there, office supplies. And if you knew what it was, you would put the vendor name and the category and the amount with the right date, and then go back, make sure it's in the credit card, and then go back to the reconciliation screen, and that will show up and you can reconcile.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah.
You're welcome. And yes, if you pay as friends or family with a PayPal account, you definitely have to do a 1099. And since they're cracking down on those, if you have PayPal or Venmo or Cash App, you want to make sure that it's a business account for PayPal or Venmo and get rid of Cash App. You shouldn't be using that for business. It's just not a good one at all. Any other questions? We tired of QuickBooks? Never, never.
I spend a lot of quality time getting to know QuickBooks these days.
I do too. You know, I feel that one. And it changes. It's like just when I make the perfect video that perfectly explains to you how to do the one hard thing, they change the screens, like where the menu is and what's on what menu. So it's not there anymore.
You just described my life in Facebook. When I do trainings on how to do Facebook or social media, then they totally change the business manager.
That's why this new group for learning QuickBooks is going to be great, because it's going to be cyclical. Everything will just keep going and changing.
Yeah, totally. I agree. It's a never ending moving target. I mean, I think that that's one of the things in business that we forget, is that even if we learn something, you know, today on April 30th of 2022, by May 1st, things will have changed.
Absolutely. Got to stay on our toes. And you know, once I accepted that that's how it's going to be and I'm not going to nail it down, it's been a lot easier to deal with.
Absolutely. Thank you.